Do you remember Wacky Races? Well, if you're as old as me and you watched television when you were a child, you probably do. But you possibly do anyway, because some of the characters from Wacky Races lived on, even though it only lasted a few months in its first release. Yes, Wacky Races was a cartoon where there was a car race every week, based on a 1965 film directed by Blake Edwards. It was called The Great Race, and it starred Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, Natalie Wood. And extrapolating from that, the people of Hanna-Barbera created a whole bunch of characters, some of whom you will know, who would compete in Wacky Races. Originally, the concept, I understand, was that kids were going to be invited to guess who would win each week. Sounds a little bit like gambling, which may be why Hanna-Barbera and I guess the network CBS, was it, nixed that idea. But anyway, each week there was a race. It only ran from September the 14th, 1968 to January the 4th, 1969. But the original series has been endlessly repeated, and there's been a couple of spin-offs starring some of the standout characters. Let's have a look at the lineup, shall we? First up, the Slag Brothers, rock and gravel, and they drove the Boulder-mobile. Next up, the Gruesome Twosome, Bella and Tiny in the creepy coupe. Then there was Professor Pat Pending. And that's quite a clever joke, actually. I think it probably went over my head when I was a kid. In the converter car, which did what it sounds like it does. Then the Anthill Mob, sort of gangsters in the Bulletproof Bomb. Then Red Max, a kind of a Baron von Richthofen type, I guess, a sort of parody of that, in the Crimson Hay Baler. Sergeant Blast and Private Meek in the Army Surplus Special, which from memory resembled a tank. Yes, I think it did. Lazy Luke and Blubber Bear in the Arkansas Chuggabug. A little bit of stereotyping there. And Rufus Roughcut in the Buzzwagon. Now, if none of those ring a bell, then here are three names, or four names you're probably waiting to hear. The ones who everybody remembers the most. Penelope Pitstop in the Compact Pussycat. Peter Perfect in the Turbo Terrific. And last but absolutely not least, Dick Dastardly and Muttley in the Mean Machine. You've got to remember them. You've certainly got to remember Muttley and his crazy snigger. I'm not going to do it. I can't do it justice. The makers, Hanna-Barbera, well, they created just about every cartoon that was on in the 60s and 70s. And I think they still exist today, making stuff for Cartoon Network. And it was just all about the fun. The animation wasn't great. The characters were clever. The vocal talent was always very good. You will not recognise the names. I know you won't recognise the names necessarily. Maybe Dawes Butler and Don Messick, who did a lot of voice work. John Stevenson, Janet Waldo, Paul Winchell, and the narrator was Dave Willock. Willock. Anyway, Wacky Races. Every week it was different. There were only 17 20-minute episodes. As I said, it ran forever, and it ended up being rebooted apparently in the late teens, but I don't recall seeing that. Probably because I'm a little bit too old. But can you improve on the original? I don't know. And there were sequels, and one that I remember by the name, I think, Stop the Pigeon, or Stop That Pigeon, may have had another name. It featured Dick Dastardly and Muttley, of course. And there was another one, I think, with Penelope Pitstop and the Anthill Mob. But again, the original is the best. Wacky Races. If you didn't see it at the time, maybe you weren't around at the time, catch up on it now. Why not? They don't make them like that anymore, but they do make good cartoons, I guess. And it's sign of the times that maybe this is just a little bit naive, and as I said, some of the characters stereotype. But mindless fun, and yeah, if you're an adult, and you know, I guess you can have a little wager on the outcomes if you don't remember who did win. Well, Wacky Races, was it on your TV on a Saturday morning, or have you caught it through streaming services or cable or some other means? You know Dick Dastardly and Muttley. You absolutely do. And I have a feeling that in some territories, as they say in the biz, Muttley may have been known as Mugsley, because Muttley was regarded as not a nice name. But mutt, dog, yeah, I don't know. Sensitivities. Anyway, that's my thoughts. What are yours? Do they make them like they used to? Did you have a favourite wacky racer? Perhaps maybe not one of the big three that I mentioned. And if so, let me know in the comments. Share this if you like. Like it if you like it. And overall, if you can, if you subscribe. It helps me out and means that I can maybe bring back a few more memories for you. Goodbye for now.